I'm ready.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming to this interview. Thank you for participating. Just for my sake and for the sake of the people watching or listening, could you briefly introduce yourself, your background, personal, academic?
Of course. Hi guys. Hi Can. Hi everyone. My name is Ayse Gundogdu. Born and raised in Istanbul, Turkey. I studied in Istanbul University Law Faculty, and after I graduated, I completed my internship, worked here a bit, and then I went to the US. I did my master's in Boston University. And after I graduate, I stayed in Boston and worked like a year as a law clerk and as a research assistant. At the same time, I took the New York bar exam and I passed. So now I'm currently in Istanbul. I'm working in Shanlı Law Firm as a dual licensed lawyer. I do I these days in this office I mostly do US law. I do sanctions and export controls. So I'm using my license actually. So it's very helpful. It was very helpful for me to study in the US, obviously. So yeah, this is me, my legal education, my legal background also.
It's a wonderful background. Thank you. So, sort of to get us started, why did you choose the law? I mean, why not medical school or, I don't know, sociology? Why law school in Turkey in the first place?
Well, actually, my one day when I was 6 years old, my dad took me to Beyazıt and showed me the main entrance of Istanbul University, the law school, and it was like the best lawyers and the best judges. They graduated from this law school. Maybe you can become a lawyer one day. And I was like, oh, what is a lawyer do? What does a lawyer do? And I become more interested. So since I was little, I always wanted to become a lawyer and I always wanted to study in Istanbul University. And in Turkey they say it's a thing. If you're an argumentative kid, if you talk too much, and they're always like, "Oh, so you'll become a very good lawyer. You're a negotiator because you talk too much." So with these thoughts and like with these voices, I grew up in an environment like that. So I guess that's why I choose being a lawyer.
And I mean, at that point, you could have dug in your feet and said, you know what, I'll be the best lawyer, the best judge in Turkey. But then why go abroad? Why go study in the US after that?
If so uh it's so My family, they always had close connections with US, especially Boston. My father, he also did his master's in Boston. And I'm since we're living in a global world right now, so you need something more among your classmates. I don't want to sound like rude or whatever, but like you need something specific that you have that will improve your legal power in the environment. So I was like, what could it be? A dual license could help you to make you even more successful. And then there's this saying, one language is one person, two language is two persons. So one license is one lawyer, two license is two lawyers, and you get to understand two different legal environments. And obviously, the U.S. law environment is like very, very different than the Turkish area. So I think I wanted to broaden my horizon and work in cross-border deals, or work with like clients all across the world. So US was the best option. I also considered like Europe, UK, but even even in currency, we always use US dollars. So I was like, okay, US is the most appropriate US has the most appropriate programs for me. That's why I choose it.
Yeah. So I want to circle back on two things that you said.
Yeah.
First of all, you said there were some differences between, the Turkish environment and the American environment. And I want to pinpoint what were those differences that you saw that stood out to you?
Okay, so in in like in US legal system, it heavily relies on case law,
Mhm.
and like in school they use Socratic method of teaching. And I'm gonna start with I think I'm gonna start with my experiences in graduate school, and after I'll talk about my experiences in work. Is it okay? So
Perfect.
in school, I graduated from Istanbul Law School, and my class was like 400, 500 people. We were like very crowded. So the classes are like always like the professor centered. You don't really do discussions. You always, I was always shy to raise my hand and ask a question, because what if my stupid question was stupid or wrong? But in the US, in the first 2, 3 weeks, I heard the questions that the professor receives, and I was like, how can she or he even ask this? Because it's in the book. You don't need to ask the question if it's in the book, because that's how they raise us. But in the US, critical thinking and discussions in the school is very important, and I think it built my character these days, because I think it was the first step. I learned how to lead a discussion, and it helped me to understand how you can network, because network is like very, very important for in terms of my job. And in since I when I took those classes, the seminar classes especially, I become more confident about talking about my own ideas, even if they're wrong or right, whatever. And also I was becoming more confident saying that, hey, professor, you know what? I don't agree with this opinion of yours, because I think that da 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 da, da, because my aspect is this da da da. In the class I was able to speak about this, but in Turkey you can't do that. It's disrespectful. So this is what I see in school, and in work life. So in the US they do case law, and in Turkey there's no case law. Obviously we always go to Supreme Court decisions when we meet, but the rules are the most important things when you then. So you need to follow the rules, but when you study case law, uh, you become, so in Turkish side, I feel like it's more formal, but the US side is about more clarity, and I feel like it evolves all the time, because for example, if we're talking about subject X, the first decision that comes about subject X is on 1950s, for example, but then it evolves day by day, day by day, day by day. So the rules are more eclectic, more generated by time. But in Turkey, I don't see that. It's not like that. It's because it's rules oriented. So you always follow the rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted by the phone. I'm so sorry.
No, no, all good. It certainly does sound like the different educational environment would make for different styles of lawyer as well. And that's the second thing I want to circle back on. You said in one language you're one lawyer, one person, in the other language you're one lawyer, another person. So what is the difference between the English you, the American English you, and the Turkish you?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I think you learn how to manage people. For
Mhm.
example, in our law firm, we're working with American lawyers, with lawyers from UK, from Europe, and they don't understand the needs of of my client. My client is he's a Turkish guy. He's like 6 years old, who runs a company or whatever. And I get the chance to see the different cultures, like US legal culture and Turkish legal culture, and I I can understand what the US lawyer wants from my client, and I also can understand what my client expects from the US lawyer, you know? So I think it helped me to build a bridge between these two different cultures, and sometimes it happens from the opposite side. Sometimes you work with other Turkish lawyers for an American client, you know, and I know what an American client expects from a lawyer because I met with many American lawyers, or I have an education in U.S. legal system, so yeah, I guess that's it.
I sort of want to track back from that in terms of, what are the differences between American and Turkish spheres? Well, there's the cultural one. There's, of course, the linguistic one as well. And on that specifically, how was that experience of learning legal English? Did you find it easy as a transition? Did you find it more difficult?
For me, it was very, at the beginning, it was hard, you know, because I graduated from 100% Turkish law school. I never had any legal course in English. So when I start studying at Boston University, I remember my first 3 4 weeks was very tiring because I was like, I read everything I can find because I needed to get used to with verbs, because I know what it means, but I need to use the dictionary to be sure if the thing, if I understand the paper correctly or whatever. So uh, I always think like my first month was like a prep school, and my teachers, my professors were like they really helped me a lot. But with time, I built my confidence, because uh, I had a difference between my classmates, because I already had experience in legal field, and uh, with time I think you become more confident, but it's not like I'm not a native speaker, so it's not like you become a native speaker, but you understand how to think like a native speaker. For example, just one specific example: US students, they can easily skim a 200 pages of paper before a class. So during my first couple of weeks, it was hard for me to do like the skimming before each class, and that's why I read everything, and I didn't have a social life for a couple of weeks. Then when you get comfortable, you learn how to skim, how to interact the class, and when you feel confident about the subject that they discuss in the class, I think language barrier, you don't really see it, So that's also thing that students who wants to study in the US, they should consider this. They should read everything they can find about the subject they're gonna discuss in the class, because they will be cold.
So, pivoting to another aspect of communication, in your writing, did you find that your, writing style changed? Not perhaps in the, oh, I used to use these verbs and now I use these other verbs, but in the sense of, do you think your voice is different in
Yeah,
your
it
English
is.
writing? How so?
Yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, I had a legal writing course, and my professor said, "I said everything you write, they're correct. There is no problem with that. But you're using a very strong theoretical tone,
Mhm.
He said it needs to be more clear, more persuasive, Don't use big sentences, big verbs, because in Turkey, when you write a petition, it's like a sentence is like a one paragraph, And my professor was like, you don't need to do this. Be clear. It could be shorter. It's not bad. It's actually better, So I think it's kind of like more conversational style, the US style, I guess. But in Turkey, it's more like it's like a Bible, more serious.
And do you think that seriousness reflects in just general communication as well? Like with now that you're in a professional sphere, do you think Turkish lawyers and the seriousness with which they converse between each other is the same in American lawyers and the way they converse with each other?
Among each other, you mean? I
Among
did
each
not.
other with clients, a Turkish lawyer and an American lawyer? Like, do they have different sort of expectations on how they should communicate?
I think so, yes, because when I communicate with a US lawyer, I have a more different. My tone is different when I communicate with a Turkish lawyer. My tone is also different, because uh, y- I know what they want to hear from me, and similar, for example, US lawyers, they like small emails. But in Turkey, the emails are like longer, and also UK is like that too. They like to write long, long, long emails. But maybe other people have different, experience about this. But even this is what I see. Even in work life, they're more clear. Like they concentrate on finishing things. They're like problem solvers. Yeah, this is the perfect definition for them. They are not just being a lawyer. The U.S. lawyers, they don't think as a lawyer because they also need to solve the problem. So they took the problem from top to bottom, and they just don't think about the case itself. They think about solving the client's problem. You know what I mean? So that's also a different aspect that US lawyers have compared to Turkish lawyers, if you ask me. Yeah.
And why do you think there's that difference? I mean, is there a cultural, perception difference maybe where an American lawyer might see themselves differently than a Turkish lawyer?
I think it's about, so in Turkey, we don't so a lawyer can do whether litigation or corporate law. But in the US, it's like totally separated, like 90% of the times. And that's why I think lawyers here more court centralized, but in the US, they're more they I'm gonna use the same word again, but they're problem solvers. They think about pre-case, during the case, and post-case. Sometimes they don't even go to court if it's possible. I always when I talk with the US lawyer about an arbitration case, for example, they always consider not to go to a court or an arbiter and finish the case with the parties before. But in Turkey, it's not like that. The lawyers are more like aggressive, like let's file the case right now, da 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 da. More aggressive. I feel like. I don't know if it's an answer for your question, but
That's perfect. And now I'd want to ask, how do you see yourself now? I mean, you were educated in Turkey and then in the US. Do you see yourself as a problem solver? Do you see yourself being a little more aggressive? How do you think, your perception of yourself has changed?
I think I shape around among I shape myself depending on the environment I'm in, because I'm also a woman who grew up in Turkey. So if you want to be successful here, it's not very easy. You need to work harder, try harder, convince people harder and harder. So that's how you learn how to understand the expectations of other people and communicate with them clearly. So I'm thankful of both sides. I love being a Turkish lawyer, and I also love being a New York licensed lawyer. And I think when you like collaborate these two together, it becomes more stronger because uh, if you just think as an a US lawyer in Turkey, you can't finish a work, because the culture here is very different than the culture in the US, obviously, So, and also if you're working in an international deal, uh, being not understanding the legal culture outside your world will won't help you helping your client or like understanding the regulations clearly because it's very different. It's like um very different than each other, but like also um how should I say that? um I think you learn these kind of stuff when you get more experience day by day. So you shape yourself among people around you.
Circling back on something you said, which was you said when the two sort of perspectives combine, then it becomes
Mhm.
stronger. Would you have any particular experiences in your academic or professional career where sort of this bicultural, bi-system, bi-linguistic, I guess, sort of background helped you?
Um, mm, I'm trying to think about a specific situation. So in school, actually, I always so I took an arbitration class, and my ideas were always different than my classmates' ideas because I grow up I got my education in a civil law country, and I always ask this in the classroom. Okay, where did you read this? Where is it? Show me. I need to read a rule or something. If it's in case law, how strong is the case law is? But when you study in the US, you realize that you don't need to really see a very strong case law or an opinion on something. Maybe there's no opinion about subject X yet, and maybe you can start it, or maybe the court can rule an opposite idea from the rulings that already been made. So I think it was the hardest thing for me to realize and understand that, hey, any court can decide different than the prior court's decisions, obviously in the specific terms. But I think that was the hardest bit. And what was your question again? I think I'm very associated from the.
Any particular experiences where it was helpful? Are there any stories that you have?
I think in the classroom, I helped my friends to understand the civil law aspect, and they helped me to understand the common law aspect. And in work life, I don't know, I see many times, like I work with US lawyers all the time, and the way they handle cases, it's different. I don't know how to express this, but like even their attitude is different. It's like very conversational. It's like they're talking with a friend. Even when you send an email, you say, for example, "Hi, Bill." You don't in Turkey. This is disrespectful, because everything is like goes day by day on daily basis. So. Yeah, this is a very hard question. I couldn't think of a specific example. Sorry, I'm thinking still.
Well, as you circle around that, the question that I would ask is, you contributed to your peers in the American classroom in understanding of civil law, and now that you're a professional at a very international level, what would you hope to contribute to the legal professionals that you interact with in, these sort of cross-border, cross-language, cross-cultural sort of practices? What do you hope to, share with them? provide to them?
Them, you mean the lawyers, right? Not the clients.
Yes, yes. It could be the clients as well, but
Yeah. Okay. So what I do is for example, I do in sanctions and export control. So we draft compliance programs. We prepare compliance programs for like big conglomerate companies. And when you do that, those companies um have subsidiaries around the world, you know. So you work with other lawyers around the world, and you need to help the other lawyers understand the aspect of your client. And I always say that I don't need to talk with my client all the time. I know he won't accept that. I know he will accept this, or like I know she won't be on in the same line with you if you go to her with an opinion like this, you know. So if someone asks me, "Hey, Ayşe, I have an international, I have an ICC case going on, and I'm gonna hire a U.S. attorney. Which one would you recommend?" And I will always tell them that you need a Turkish lawyer who will help you to bridge with the U.S. lawyer because you don't know the U.S. legal system. The U.S. lawyer doesn't know your culture, how to deal with the works in here. So the communication between you won't be very strong. But if you involve a Turkish lawyer in that deal, in that business, the work will go very smoothly, more smoothly, and I think the cost will be lower. Obviously, that's also another um, positive aspect. So I think that's it. You know, that's why in Turkey we need more dual licensed lawyers, you know, and especially lawyers who have experiences in the US before they came back to Istanbul. They should come back here. Obviously, we need more, but yeah, that's it, I guess. That because I saw once that there was this it's there I heard that there was a case going on ICC, and they hired a US lawyer, and they have no idea what the US lawyer is doing because they can't just like, because in here it's like this, the client calls you and is like, "Hey, what's going on in my case right now?" You know, they expect this because it's in our culture, you know, because you always, you know, you respect your client in a different way than the. I don't say that the US lawyers are disrespectful, but you know, there's this hierarchy in Turkey, you know, that's why I think it's easier than to communicate with a Turkish lawyer.
so you said, that we need more people who have this sort of bicultural perspective. And, if a Turkish law student or a graduate wants to go study, get an LLM in the US, go get a JD education in the US, as we sort of round out, what advice would you give them? What stories or strategies would you like to share with them?
Talk with everyone that you can find. If you see someone who did an LLM, text them. "Hey, can we talk? Can we have a coffee? I want to hear your experiences. I want to hear what classes you took, and I want to hear what did you do when you're in the US? Where did you go? Where did you hang out? Who did you meet? And what was your plans, you know, during the before you go to the US, and what are you doing right now, you know?" I think they need a guidance, because they need to hear different stories, and they need to decide, "Hey, I guess I want this path in my life," you know. But also it changes when you go there, you know. You always think that, "Oh, I always want to work on this field," but then you met with different people, you know, you figure out that you want something else. That's why you need to hear experiences as much as you can, and you need to understand what's expecting you in law school, because if you know, I studied in a public law school, and it's like the US law school is like very different. It's it was another experience, and I'm so glad that I went there because it shaped my character these days. First time when I wrote a paper, it was in my master's program. In my law school, we only had exams. That's why they need to know what should they expect from the class. I always ask, I found alumni from my school and I was like, which classes you took and what was the professor's expectation, I always ask this and I always ask which school is the perfect fit for me. Every school there are a lot of very, very good schools, but it's about what do you expect? Do you want to build a network? Then you should go to a bigger law school. But if you want to improve your academical skills, maybe a smaller school with as like if there's 15, 20 people, like classmates can be enough for you. But for me, I was like, okay, I want to meet with lawyers around the world. So I was like, I need a big class. I need a class full of friends. So these are the things that they should consider, I guess. And also, I read Achoja's the circle emails all the time, and it was also very like uh, helpful for me to understand what should I expect when I go there.
Uh, the one last thing I'll ask, I'll be respectful of your time, is, I asked you for a specific story, and I'm not going to push further on that, but, if an archaeologist 1,000 years from now were to find this interview, what would be the sort of one thing you'd want to highlight from anything you've said or anything that you think is missing, that you think is
Oh,
particularly important?
oh, uh, I don't know. Okay, I can say this. I don't know if anyone mentioned, but I had friends, Turkish friends, or like any other international friends who went to the US for LLM, who also wanted to take the bar exam, but didn't study enough and they didn't pass, and they went back to their country or like to Turkey. I can, the only thing I want to highlight, the most important thing that I want to highlight is that work hard. It's just a couple weeks of your life. And, LLM is, yeah, it's good, but the license that matters the most, you need that license. So stop your life. Don't do anything else. I gained like 5 pounds when I studied for the bar, and just study like crazy. Eat whatever food you want, walk, take small walks. Don't, maybe you don't need to socialize for a couple of weeks. After that, when you get your license, you can party, you can enjoy life. That's what I will recommend to anyone because, you know, uh, 60% of my friends, they didn't pass the exam because they didn't work very well. Because they're like, oh, I'm in the US, it's summer, why should I should go out a bit, don't do that. I know it's more fun, but it's you need to finish it in once. Take it seriously.
Thank you so much for coming to this interview. Thank you so much for giving me the
Thank
time.
you.
If you don't
Uh,
have anything else, I'm just going to quickly stop the recording.
yeah, you can stop it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.